I have never added up my horse expenses before, and I'm kind of nervous about this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Katrina, and on today's video we are going to be tallying up my horse-related expenses for the month of November, which is something I have never done before, which is kind of insane. For those of you who don't know, I am a public accountant by trade. I'm a CPA, and at my job I am working with numbers, financial statements, tax returns, all that sort of thing all day. And when I'm not working, the last thing I want to do is look at more numbers. Today we are going to add things up for the month and see where things all pan out. My dad used to always say that owning horses or competing in horse-related disciplines, that was a rich man's sport. And he's not wrong. I mean, there's definitely people who spend a lot of money on horses, but there is also a way to have horses in a more affordable way, and I think I probably fall on that latter side of the spectrum, as you will see today. Horses, they are expensive. There's no getting around it, and I'm not just talking about the initial purchase price, because as you all know, horses, they do cost a lot to buy, especially something that's well broke, well bred. But there's also all of the ongoing costs that not a lot of people consider when they're buying a horse. Everything from feed to where they're stabled or where they live, and vet fees that come up, and everything in between. It all adds up. So one question I do get on social media is, how much should I budget to have a horse? And hopefully with this video, it'll give you kind of a glimpse into what that looks like. I just want to run through some of the things that I'm not going to be including in my list today. One of those things being my tack. All of my tack I have purchased months and in some cases years ago, and those are just sunk costs that I paid for long ago. So I am not including that today, even though I am reaping the benefit of those investments today. I'm also not including any utilities costs. First off, my horses don't use much in that regard. They don't stay in a barn that's heated. They have zero heating costs. The only power costs that are related to my horses would be the barn lights, which are only turned on if it's dark out, and the little bit of power that I use to keep my de-icer on my water trough, which those take up such a small amount of power that I'm not going to even try to estimate how much that would cost, because it's not much. I'm also not including the cost of the Bobcat and the related fuel that we use. So we do use a Bobcat to move around the round bales and also to plow snow around the barnyard. Not including the cost of that. Again, kind of hard to reasonably figure out how much that would cost, so I'm just not even gonna include that today. And also on the topic of fuel, I'm not including any fuel for this month because I didn't haul my horses anywhere in November, and anytime I needed to like pick up feed or anything like that, I was already in town, whether I was at work and just stopped on the way home or something like that. So I wasn't actually out of pocket any additional fuel costs this month specifically related to my horses. So nothing to include there. If this were July and I was hauling to horse shows, that is when I would be including fuel costs. And I don't have any boarding or stabling fees. We own the property where my horses live and it's paid in full, so there's no monthly boarding charge or anything like that. I know that is a big expense for a lot of people who own horses. They can't keep them on their own property, so they have to pay a boarding fee every month, and that can be very, very expensive. So I'm very fortunate that I don't have to incur that cost every month. So with all of that being said, let's get into how much I spent. One more caveat before we move on. Just remember that I own 2 horses. So I have Junior, who is a 22-year-old gelding, and I have Diesel, who is a 3-year-old gelding. Now, there's pros and cons to having 2 horses. In some instances, my costs double. Like, I have to buy twice the amount of feed when I have 2 horses. But there are some costs that are shared between the 2 of them. So just keep that in mind. I do have 2 horses, so it's not directly double the cost in some cases. So let's start with feed. Right now, it's winter. I've been feeding hay since sometime in October. And the hay that I'm feeding right now is actually hay that I purchased last year. I still had some left over, and I believe I paid $100 a bale for that feed a year ago. So technically right now I'm not out of pocket for that feed because I paid for it last year, but they did go through a bale and a half of that in November. So technically that's $150 worth of feed. In the summer, I have the good fortune of not having to pay for forage for my horses. We have a ton of grass here in the spring and summer here in Alberta. So my horses just live off of grass during the spring and summer months. But now that we've come into winter, it was really, really dry here this year. And so I had to start feeding, as I said, sometime in October. So as you go through a full year owning a horse, those forage costs definitely can fluctuate a lot. In my case this month, I purchased a full load of hay. So my expenses related to feed are a lot this month. But if you go to like June, July, I would have 0 forage costs because they are eating grass. I had a full load of hay delivered during November for my horses that will hopefully get me through the remainder of winter. And that cost me $100 per bale plus $100 for travel. So that was $900 in total for the hay plus the delivery charge. The bulk of my horse's diet is forage, but to fill in any nutritional gaps and to keep my horses feeling and performing their best, I do give them supplements. So Junior, being a senior horse, he gets a senior ration, and Diesel gets a performance ration. They are both by Hoffman's, and I highly recommend. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I just absolutely love Hoffman's feed products. And they both also get Hoffman's just general all-around mineral. And that's just kind of like an insurance policy to make sure that they don't have any vitamin or nutritional deficiencies or anything like that, because grass, hay, whatever it is, there's always going to be some shortfalls. It's very rare that you have the perfect hay bale or the perfect pasture. Junior's senior ration costs $47 a bag, and he goes through 1 bag a month. Diesel's elite ration, performance ration, is $62.50 a bag, and he also goes through 1 bag a month. Diesel will go through more in the months when I'm riding him really hard, but for right now, he goes through 1 bag a month. The mineral that I give them is $57.90 a bag, and they go through about a third of a bag per month, which is consistent throughout the year. I don't increase or decrease the amount of mineral they're getting. So for tallying purposes, I'm gonna kind of consider the $800 that I spent on hay for the rest of winter is kind of what we call in the accounting world a prepaid expense. So yes, I'm out of pocket for it right now, but that expense is going to get used up over several months. So for the purpose of tallying, I'm only going to use a cost of $150 because that is how much feed they actually consumed this month. The rest of the hay is still in inventory for right now. And that's it for feed. So we have $150 in hay, $100 for delivery, $47 for Junior's ration, $62.50 for Diesel's ration, $19.30 for the mineral, for a grand total of $378.80. Next up is supplies, and I bought a few different miscellaneous things that were needed for my horses this month. And the first one was a water trough. So if you saw in an earlier video, I had mentioned that my husband and I were fighting with an automatic waterer. We've been fighting with it for at least 3 years at this point. It kind of freezes. If it gets really, really cold here, it freezes completely, and then I don't have water for my horses at all. This year, there's something going wrong with the electrical, and just as it was starting to get really cold here, we realized that, and so rather than fighting with it for the entire winter, we just decided to blow it out, close the valves, and use just a plain old water trough instead. And so this is the first winter that I have 2 horses. In the past, I've just had Junior, and the water trough that I had was more than sufficient for Junior. It would take him quite a while to drink it all. But now that I have 2 horses drinking from it, it goes down way faster. So I decided to go and buy a larger water trough. And that cost me $299.99. Fortunately, this is one of those things, it's an investment, right? Like, it's not something that we use once and it's done. A water trough will last for years and years and years. So this isn't something I'm going to have to continually spend, but it was one of those things that I did need to go out and buy. At the same time that I bought the water trough, I also purchased the biggest tarp that I could find, and that tarp will be used to cover the bales that I just purchased. I don't want the bales getting snowed on or rained on or anything like that. I want them to be as dry as possible so that there's no risk of mold or anything like that. So went to the store. I had no idea what tarps cost. I shouldn't say I've never bought a tarp before. It's been a really long time since I bought a tarp, so I had no idea how much it would cost. This tarp, I bought the biggest one they had, was $209.99. And again, this is something I'll be able to use for at least a couple of years to cover my feed. I made a trip to one of the tack stores here in central Alberta. I don't go to tack stores a whole lot. I'm pretty good at being like, I only shop when I need something. And in this case, I did need something. Junior is 16.2 hands high. He's a very, very big horse. He's built big, whereas Diesel is 14.3 and is built way smaller than Junior is. All of the winter blankets that I have are junior size, which if I would put one of those on Diesel, it would be way too big, could potentially hurt him if he got tangled up in the straps or something like that. So I did need to go out and buy Diesel a winter blanket. And luckily, I found one that was on sale and it was $150. It's a weather Beta. I did mention it in an earlier video. So far, so good. It's a really good blanket. Definitely, again, winter blankets, they can last as well. Like all these things I'm buying, they do last. This winter blanket hopefully will last me at least a couple of years. I know the blanket that Junior is wearing right now it's at least 7 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully, you invest in something that is a quality product and it will hopefully last you years and years and years instead of buying something cheaper, but that would potentially have to be replaced sooner. So you kind of have to weigh that with a lot of things that you buy for your horses, whether that's tack or your cowboy boots or whatever. At that trip to the tack store, I don't know, I had a moment of weakness. I bought some horse treats for my horses. I do not give my horses treats at all, but for some reason I just felt compelled to buy them some horse treats. Again, I did mention them in that video that I also mentioned the blanket. So I bought them some horse treats, $8, not a big deal. And that is it for supplies. So we have the water trough for $299.99, the tarp for $209.99, the winter blanket for $150, and the horse treats for $8, for a total of $667.98. I will just add here that Diesel did get hurt sometime in October, I think. And in the beginning of November, I still was kind of doctoring him a bit. So using some bandages and some ointment and stuff like that. Again, that was all things that I had on hand. I have no idea how much I spent on them. So for the purposes of this video, not including those in my total. I was also kind of lucky this month in terms of timing. I didn't have any farrier, vet, massage, chiropractor. I didn't have any of those expenses this month. The person that I see the most frequently is my farrier, and just the way timing worked out, I didn't have him come in the month of November. I do have my farrier come out every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the time of year and how fast my horse's feet are growing, but did not have him come out in November. So that will be an expense in December. I just wanted to go through some potential ways I could have saved money this month, because now that we've got some numbers in front of us, we can kind of try and analyze where I could have maybe saved some money. Some people would argue that I don't need to buy my horses any supplements. It is true that my horses would be fine with just their hay. They would be fine. So many people around here, they don't give their horses any supplements at all. They might get a salt block and that's about it. But I don't want my horses to just be fine. For Junior, he has served me for so many years that I just want him feeling his absolute best. And I know that feeding him a little bit of a higher quality supplement helps with that. And for Diesel, I want him performing at his best. I have really big goals with Diesel, and he's still getting rode. It's been really nice here lately, so he is still getting rode 6 days a week. And so I want him feeling and performing at his best, which again, the supplements help with that. So yes, some people would say I could have saved $150 this month by not buying supplements, but the benefit that I get from using those supplements, I think outweighs any cost I have to incur to buy those supplements. I also didn't need to buy my horses those treats, but it was only $8, and I don't know. I think once in a while is fine. I am not going to worry about $8. Horses, to an extent, can be as affordable or as expensive as you want them to be. There are people who do spend less than I do. Like I said, they don't buy their horses supplements. They do the very, very bare bones, which doesn't really sit well with me. I'd rather have my horses get a higher level of care than that. But there are definitely people out there who spend way, 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 way more than I do. So it's a matter of what you can afford, what you think is reasonable, and yeah, just figuring out what works for you. Okay, so after tallying everything up, my total cost for November of 2022 was $1,046.78. If I add in the total of the feed I purchased, so the hay that I purchased but have not used yet, and take out the cost of the feed that I purchased last year, then my total would be $1,696.78. To be honest, that's not too bad. I'm okay with that. And especially considering I bought a lot of things this month that I will not have to buy in future months, I am okay with this cost. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. Did you think I would be spending more? Did you think I would be spending less? Let me know in the comments where you thought I was going to be and if you were surprised at what my total came out to. As I've kind of alluded to in different parts of this video, my horse expenses fluctuate a lot during the year. So I bought my hay this month, but I didn't have things like traveling and hauling fees, show fees, vet costs, anything like that. And all of those things present themselves throughout the year. So it does fluctuate a lot. And because of that, I've decided for each month going forward, I am going to do a video like this just to give you guys an idea of how much the costs of owning a horse do fluctuate over the course of a year. And then once we've got 12 videos under our belt with these monthly recaps, I will give you an annual total so you can kind of see this is how much it really, really does cost to own a horse, which at the end of the year, I'm going to be very curious to see where that pans out, because November 2022, it is just a very small snapshot of my horse ownership. So definitely be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Strong in the Saddle. And until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride.